Mr. Willis, this truck is 21 years old.
Well, that's why it needs fixing.
What if I told you Lucille Ball ended a hit show just to own her own, that Richard Burton despised working with her, and that her real-life broken leg was written into an entire season? From a $1 million diamond too valuable to film, to the show's cousin by marriage appearing in over 40 episodes, Here's Lucy is stranger than fiction. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about. Here's Lucy. Fact 1. Ball canceled a hit show to own this one.
It's a cinch to win the contest. He'll get first prize, and all you have to do is take his picture.
Who takes what?
In 1968, Lucille Ball made one of the boldest business decisions in television history when she walked away from The Lucy Show, a sitcom that had just finished as the #2 rated program in America. The reason had nothing to do with creative differences or declining viewership, but everything to do with ownership and control. Ball had sold Desilu Productions, the studio she had built with her ex-husband Desi Arnaz, to Gulf and Western in 1967 for $17 million. The Lucy Show was part of that sale, which meant Ball would be working on a hit series she no longer owned. For someone who had spent years building an entertainment empire and understanding the value of owning your own content, this arrangement was unacceptable. She refused to continue starring in a show where someone else controlled the rights and profits from her work. So Ball did something almost unheard of in television at the time. She ended a massively successful series at the height of its popularity to start fresh with Here's Lucy, which she would own outright through her new production company, Lucille Ball Productions. This decision gave her complete creative control and ensured she would profit from syndication deals and reruns for decades to come. While walking away from a top-rated show seemed risky to network executives and industry observers, Ball understood that long-term ownership was worth more than short-term ratings success. Her instincts proved correct, as Here's Lucy ran for 6 successful seasons, and Ball maintained ownership throughout its entire run. Fact 2. The kids' names were their own choice.
Now this is your last chance. If one piece of candy gets past you and into the packing room unwrapped, you're fired.
Yes, ma'am.
Let her roll!
When Lucille Ball decided to cast her real-life children, Lucy Arnaz and Desi Arnaz Jr., as her television kids in Here's Lucy, she made an unusual decision that gave the teenagers unprecedented creative input for actors their age. Rather than simply assigning them character names, Ball allowed her children to choose their own on-screen names and contribute ideas about how their characters should speak and behave. Lucy chose the name Kim Carter, while Desi Jr. selected Craig Carter for his character. This wasn't just a symbolic gesture to make the kids feel included, but a practical decision based on Ball's recognition that teenage dialogue and behavior had changed dramatically since her own youth. Ball understood that if the teenage characters were going to feel authentic to 1968 audiences, she needed input from actual teenagers. The Arnaz siblings were given the freedom to suggest more realistic dialogue when scripts felt too dated or out of touch with how young people actually spoke. They could point out when their characters' reactions seemed unrealistic or when slang felt forced and unnatural. This collaborative approach helped. Here's Lucy avoid the awkward, stilted teenage characters that plagued many sitcoms of the era, where adult writers tried to imagine how young people talked and often got it embarrassingly wrong. The result was that Kim and Craig Carter felt like real teenagers rather than adults' idealized versions of what teenagers should be, which helped the show connect with younger viewers who might otherwise have dismissed it as another out-of-touch parents' show. Fact 3. Doris Singleton was supposed to be a regular before.
Lucy, I'm really stuck. Exhale all the air in your lungs. That's not the part that's stuck.
Here's Lucy premiered in 1968. The show had a very different cast lineup planned that would have included a familiar face from Lucille Ball's past. Doris Singleton, who had played Carolyn Appleby on I Love Lucy, and appeared in numerous episodes of The Lucy Show, was originally cast as a series regular. She was set to play a character named Marge, who would serve as Harry Tuggle's secretary at the employment agency where Lucy Carter worked. Singleton filmed the pilot episode in this role, and everyone involved assumed she would be part of the main cast throughout the series. However, Ball made a last-minute decision that completely changed the show's direction and cost Singleton her regular role. Ball decided to bring her real-life children, Lucy Arnaz and Desi Arnaz Jr., onto the show as series regulars, playing her television children. This created a problem because the show's format and budget couldn't accommodate both Singleton's character and two teenage characters who would require substantial screen time and storylines. Something had to give, and Ball chose to prioritize her children's involvement over continuing with her longtime colleague. Singleton's character was written out after the pilot, and the role of Harry's secretary was either eliminated or reduced to occasional appearances by other actresses. While Singleton continued to work in television and remained on good terms with Ball, appearing in occasional guest spots on Here's Lucy over the years, she never became the series regular she was originally intended to be, all because Ball's family took precedence over the original casting plan. Fact 4. Burton called Ball a monster of staggering charmlessness.
Didn't like the idea because it was such an old cliche. It was such an old cliche. It was also stale.
When Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton appeared on Here's Lucy in November of 1970, in an episode centered around Taylor's famous Krupp diamond, the on-set experience was far more tense than viewers could have imagined. While the episode appeared lighthearted and playful on screen, Burton was deeply unhappy with the entire experience, particularly with Ball's controlling approach to directing his performance. Burton, one of the most acclaimed actors of his generation, was accustomed to being treated as a serious, dramatic performer, and he bristled at Ball's hands-on direction of every comedic beat and physical gag. After filming Wrapped, Burton expressed his feelings in his private diaries, which were published years after his death. His assessment of Ball was devastating and remarkably harsh, describing her as a monster of staggering charmlessness who showed no warmth or humor off camera. Burton felt Ball was tyrannical in how she micromanaged performances and allowed no room for actors to bring their own interpretation to scenes. He also noted that despite her reputation as a comedic genius, she seemed to have no sense of humor about herself or anything else when the cameras stopped rolling. Burton described feeling like he was being treated as an amateur rather than an Oscar-nominated actor with decades of experience. The experience was apparently so unpleasant that Burton wrote he would never work with Ball again under any circumstances, regardless of how much money was offered. These diary entries paint a very different picture of the glamorous celebrity crossover episode that became one of the highest-rated installments of Here's Lucy. Fact 5. The famous diamond was too valuable to film.
Greg, I think it's very sneaky you making a movie about Mother without warning her. You know, no woman looks her best in the morning.
Kim, this isn't a woman, it's Mom.
Elizabeth Taylor's appearance on Here's Lucy in 1970 was built around one of the most famous pieces of jewelry in the world, the 69.42 carat Krupp diamond, which Richard Burton had purchased for Taylor in 1968 for more than $300,000. The enormous diamond was so valuable that it created serious logistical problems for the production that required creative solutions. The insurance costs for having such an expensive piece of jewelry on a television studio lot were astronomical, and the standard studio insurance policies wouldn't adequately cover the diamond's full value in case of theft or damage. The production company, CBS, and Taylor's representatives spent considerable time negotiating how to safely film scenes featuring the famous ring. The solution they arrived at was unusual and required building duplicate sets in different locations. Any wide shots or scenes where the diamond wasn't the focal point were filmed at the regular studio using a replica ring that looked identical but was essentially worthless. However, for close-up shots where viewers would see the diamond in detail, a completely different set had to be constructed at a secure, undisclosed location with enhanced security measures, including armed guards. Taylor would travel to this separate location to film only the close-up shots of her hand wearing the actual ring, which would then be edited seamlessly into the episode with the footage from the main studio. This elaborate arrangement added significant time and expense to the production, but it was the only way to feature one of the world's most famous diamonds on a television sitcom without risking financial catastrophe. Fact 6. Desi Jr.'s band was real and successful.
I wasn't going very fast, and I just turned to gawk at the beautiful scenery, and I just sort of fell down.
Long before Desi Arnaz Jr. became a regular cast member on Here's Lucy, he was already a legitimate pop star in his own right, which made his transition to television somewhat unusual, since most child actors move into music rather than the other way around. In 1964, when Desi Jr. was only 11 years old, he formed a band called Dino, Desi and Billy, with Dean Martin's son, Dean Paul Martin, and their friend, Billy Hinchy. What started as three famous kids jamming together turned into a genuinely successful recording act that had real chart success before Desi Jr. was old enough to drive. By 1965, when Desi Jr. was just 12, the band had scored 2 top 40 hits on the Billboard charts with the songs Charnot Quote 11 and Shamona Quote 22, proving they were more than just celebrity children trading on their parents' fame. The band toured nationally, appeared on television variety shows, and recorded multiple albums between 1965 and 1969. This meant that when Desi Jr. joined Here's Lucy in 1968, he was actually taking a break from his music career to focus on acting, which is the opposite trajectory of most young entertainers. The show occasionally referenced his musical background, and a few episodes featured Desi Jr. performing with his band or playing drums, which added authenticity since viewers knew he was a real musician. His success with Dino, Desi, and Billy also helped Here's Lucy attract younger viewers who might otherwise have dismissed the show as just another program aimed at their parents' generation. Fact 7. Ball's singing voice was dubbed by her protege.
By the way,
Throughout Here's Lucy's run, several episodes featured Lucy Carter singing, performing in musical numbers, or participating in scenes that required vocal performances beyond simple dialogue. What many viewers didn't realize was that in numerous instances, the singing voice coming from Lucille Ball's mouth on screen wasn't actually Ball's voice at all. Instead, Ball's longtime friend and protege, actress Carol Cook, secretly provided the singing voice for many of these musical moments. Cook had been discovered and mentored by Ball decades earlier, and the two women remained close friends throughout their lives, with Ball frequently finding ways to give Cook work in her various television projects. The dubbing arrangement was supposed to be seamless, with editors carefully matching Cook's vocals to Ball's lip movements, so viewers would never notice the switch. However, many longtime fans and careful viewers could detect that something sounded different during musical numbers, as Cook's voice had a distinctly different quality and tone than Ball's natural speaking voice. In some episodes, the difference was subtle enough that casual viewers might not notice, but in others, especially during elaborate musical production numbers, the vocal dubbing became more obvious to anyone paying close attention. Ball apparently felt no embarrassment about using a vocal double, viewing it as no different than using a stunt double for physical gags she couldn't safely perform herself. This practical approach to production meant that Here's Lucy could include elaborate musical sequences without requiring Ball to spend time on vocal training or worry about hitting difficult notes during filming. Fact 8. Jackie Gleason's legendary cameo was probably unrehearsed.
You wash your hair in champagne? Oh, really? I wash my hair in beer.
One of the most memorable moments in Here's Lucy's entire run came during an episode featuring Jack Benny, when Jackie Gleason made a surprise appearance as his iconic character Ralph Cramden from The Honeymooners. What made this cameo even more special was that it may have been completely unrehearsed, surprising not just the studio audience, but even the extras and background actors working on the set that day. Careful viewers watching the episode can see what appears to be genuine shock and surprise on the faces of background performers when Gleason suddenly enters the scene in full Ralph Kramden costume and character. Their reactions don't look like scripted surprise, but rather authentic amazement at seeing one of television's most beloved characters appear unexpectedly. Industry observers and television historians have long speculated that Gleason, who was known for his improvisational skills and dislike of extensive rehearsals, may have agreed to do the cameo without going through the normal preparation process. He may have simply shown up on filming day, stayed out of sight until his entrance, and walked into the scene cold, trusting his decades of experience playing Ralph Kramden to carry him through. This would explain why the background actors' reactions seem so genuine, and why there's an extra electricity to the scene that's hard to capture with fully rehearsed performances. If true, this approach would be entirely consistent with Gleason's legendary status as someone who preferred to keep performances fresh and spontaneous rather than rehearsing moments until they felt stale. The result was a cameo that felt genuinely surprising and exciting to everyone watching. Fact 9. A skiing accident changed the entire 5th season.
I'm truly sorry about the whole thing.
I forgive you, love. Do you forgive me?
In January of 1972, Lucille Ball took a skiing vacation that resulted in an injury so serious it could have ended. Here's Lucy entirely, but instead, the production found a creative way to continue filming while Ball recovered. Ball broke her leg in a skiing accident that required extensive medical treatment and would prevent her from performing the physical comedy and elaborate pratfalls that had been her trademark for decades. Most television productions would have simply shut down for the season or written the main character out temporarily while the star recovered. But Ball was too much of a professional and too committed to keeping her crew employed to let that happen. Instead, producers made the bold decision to write her real-life injury directly into every single episode of the show's 5th season. Lucy Carter appeared in a wheelchair, wearing a leg cast, and dealing with the complications of limited mobility throughout the entire season. This wasn't just mentioned in 1 or 2 episodes and then forgotten, but became an ongoing part of the show's storyline, with scripts specifically written around Ball's physical limitations. Writers had to come up with new types of comedy that didn't rely on Ball's trademark physical gags, stunts, or slapstick routines that required mobility. The cast and crew adapted to this new reality, finding humor in Lucy Carter's frustration with her injury and creating scenarios where the wheelchair and cast became props for comedy rather than obstacles to avoid. Ball's professionalism during this period was remarkable as she continued to film a full season's worth of episodes while recovering from a serious injury that would have sidelined most performers indefinitely. Fact 10. Ball appeared on screen with herself.
What is that? Here in the paper. I was looking at it. Here. Look at... Oh, I forgot. You can't read. I can read the big print, for heaven's sake.
In 1974, Here's Lucy featured one of the most technically ambitious episodes of the entire series, when Lucille Ball played 2 different versions of herself on screen at the same time, using split-screen technology that was cutting edge for television at that period. The episode was designed to promote Ball's upcoming film, Mame, and the premise involved Lucy Carter entering a Lucille Ball look-alike contest, only to encounter the real Lucille Ball, who was there to judge the competition. This meant Ball had to play both Lucy Carter, her regular character on the show, and Lucille Ball, playing herself as a glamorous movie star. The technical challenges of filming this episode were significant, as split-screen effects were far more complicated in 1974 than they would become in later decades with digital technology. Each scene had to be carefully choreographed so Ball could film her part as one character, then immediately change costumes and film her part as the other character, with precise blocking to ensure the 2 versions of herself would appear to be looking at each other and interacting naturally. The timing had to be perfect so that when one version of Ball spoke, the other version would react appropriately, creating the illusion of two separate people having a genuine conversation. Editors then combined the footage in post-production, creating the seamless appearance of Ball conversing with herself. The episode was a technical showcase that demonstrated how sophisticated television production had become, while also serving as a clever promotional tool for Ball's film career beyond the small screen. Fact 11. The show was filmed live, when most weren't.
I know there are dog biscuits around here. She gave me some for dinner tonight.
By the time Here's Lucy premiered in 1968, many television sitcoms had moved away from filming in front of live studio audiences, preferring the control and flexibility of filming on closed sets where scenes could be perfected without worrying about audience reactions or the limitations of continuous performances. However, Lucille Ball insisted that Here's Lucy be filmed before live audiences every week, making it increasingly unusual for its era. Ball believed deeply that her comedy performed better when she had a live audience to play off of, and she felt the energy and spontaneity that came from performing for real people was essential to getting genuine laughs. She had learned during her I Love Lucy days that audience reactions informed her performance, helping her understand which jokes landed and which ones needed adjustment. Ball also felt that laugh tracks, which were increasingly common on sitcoms filmed without audiences, sounded artificial and took away from the authentic feel of her comedy. Filming before a live audience meant the production had to be more disciplined and organized, as scenes couldn't be endlessly reshot without exhausting the audience or losing their spontaneous reactions. This approach required Ball and the cast to be thoroughly prepared, know their lines perfectly, and execute physical comedy precisely, because unlike shows filmed on closed sets, they couldn't simply stop and start over dozens of times until everything was perfect. The commitment to live audiences meant Here's Lucy maintained a theatrical quality and energy that distinguished it from other sitcoms of the early 1970s. Fact 12. Two Cousins by Marriage appeared in over 60 episodes combined.
What'll it be, girl?
Oh, what do you have, Daddy?
Oh, gee, I don't know. I'm on a diet.
Me too.
Here's Lucy became something of a family business in an unexpected way when two people connected to the production through marriage appeared in dozens and dozens of episodes throughout the show's 6-season run. Sid Gould, who was Gary Morton's cousin, and Vanda Barra, who became Ball's cousin by marriage when she married Morton, both became recurring fixtures on the show in an unusual arrangement. Between the two of them, Gould and Barra appeared in nearly 90 combined episodes over the course of the series, though neither was ever credited as a series regular or given consistent character roles. What made their participation especially odd was that they almost never played the same character twice. In one episode, Gould might appear as a waiter, in the next as a policeman, then as a salesman, then as a party guest, with no acknowledgement that the same actor kept showing up in different roles. Similarly, Barra would pop up as various secretaries, shoppers, neighbors, and random characters throughout different episodes. For viewers paying close attention, seeing the same faces repeatedly in different roles could be distracting. But for Ball and the production team, it was simply a practical way to provide steady work to family members while filling the numerous small speaking roles and featured extra positions that every episode required. This nepotistic arrangement was fairly common in Hollywood at the time, where stars frequently found ways to employ relatives and friends in their productions, ensuring that people connected to the show's main figures could earn regular paychecks throughout the production's run. Fact 13. The Burtons episode became CBS's highest-rated show.
We gotta have you up there so we can take the picture. Come on.
The November 1970 episode of Here's Lucy, featuring Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, which centered around Taylor's famous Krupp diamond ring, became a ratings phenomenon that exceeded everyone's expectations, despite all the behind-the-scenes tension and difficulties during production. When the episode aired, it attracted such massive viewership that it became the single highest-rated program on the entire CBS network for the 1971 to 1972 television season, beating out not just other sitcoms, but also sports broadcasts, news specials, and major event programming. The combination of Lucille Ball's enduring popularity, Elizabeth Taylor's massive star power as one of Hollywood's biggest movie stars, and the public's fascination with the famous diamond created perfect conditions for a television event that transcended the usual boundaries of a weekly sitcom. Millions of viewers tuned in specifically to see Taylor and her incredible jewelry, even if they weren't regular Here's Lucy watchers. The episode's success was particularly remarkable, considering that Richard Burton later revealed how miserable he had been during filming and how much he disliked working with Ball. Despite Burton's private complaints about Ball's directing style and the tense atmosphere on set, none of that tension was visible on screen, and the episode played as a light, entertaining showcase for two of the world's most famous couples. The ratings triumph validated CBS's decision to pay whatever was necessary to get the Burtons on the show and proved that celebrity guest appearances could still drive massive audiences in an era when television options were expanding. Fact 14. Ball's injury finally aged the Lucy character.
Because I'm not going to let him get away with this. I let Elizabeth Taylor get away with it, but never again.
When Lucille Ball broke her leg skiing in January of 1972, the injury had unexpected consequences beyond just the physical limitations it imposed during filming. According to Jeffrey Mark Fiddleman, author of the Lucy book, this accident marked a significant turning point in how Ball portrayed her character and represented one of the first times the Lucy character was finally allowed to age after decades of playing roles that required her to act younger than her actual years. Throughout I Love Lucy, The Lucy Show, and the early seasons of Here's Lucy, Ball had played characters who engaged in physical comedy and harebrained schemes with a youthful energy that didn't acknowledge her advancing age. Even as Ball reached her 50s and then her 60s, her characters maintained a childlike quality and engaged in physical pratfalls that seemed to exist outside of normal aging. The broken leg changed this dynamic because Ball could no longer perform the elaborate physical comedy that had been her trademark, and writers had to create storylines that acknowledged Lucy Carter's physical limitations and mortality. For the first time, viewers saw Lucy dealing with recovery, limited mobility, and the frustrations of not being able to do things she used to do easily. This subtle shift made the character more relatable to older viewers who were experiencing their own aging processes and dealing with the reality that bodies don't work the same way at 60 as they did at 30. While Ball returned to more physical comedy after her leg healed, the injury had permanently shifted something in how she approached the character. Fact 15. A season finale was filmed without an audience.
Never mind that. There's something crooked going on around here, and we're going to get to the bottom of it.
Look, Mrs. Carmichael.
In 1973, as Here's Lucy approached the end of what might have been its final season, Lucille Ball and Gail Gordon filmed a potential series finale episode that broke one of the show's most fundamental rules by being filmed without a studio audience present. This was extraordinary for a series that had always insisted on performing before live audiences as an essential part of its creative process. Ball had spent years explaining that she needed the energy of a live crowd to give her best comedic performances. Yet for this particular episode, she and Gordon performed their scenes on a completely closed set, with no audience watching at all. The decision reflected Ball's uncertainty about whether she wanted to continue with the series or end it while it still maintained respectable ratings and quality. By filming the potential finale without an audience, Ball and Gordon could focus on the emotional weight of the scenes without worrying about audience reactions or the need to hit specific comedic beats for laughs. The episode was designed to provide closure for Lucy Carter and Harry Tuggle's story if Ball decided to walk away from weekly television production. Ultimately, Ball chose to continue the show for additional seasons, so this filmed without an audience episode never served as the series finale it was intended to be. However, the fact that Ball was willing to abandon her long-held belief in live audience filming for this one special episode demonstrated how seriously she was considering ending the show and how different she wanted the potential finale to feel from every other episode.